You are now tuning in to Let's Be Honest with host Just Jonda. I said at the beginning, once we got towards the end, I was going to start deducting points from the producers on this episode, from production on this episode. And this is where I'm starting to deduct points between overly producing Whitney and some of these scenes that felt like they were very choppy. And it could be that they probably went off on some tangents and then they tried to cut the tangents out and just give us the good part, because it seemed like there was a bunch of random conversations that were jammed into one, because suddenly Jen tells Lisa she just needs her to be consistent. Lisa says, "Don't turn this on me. Who is there for me?" You know, I love doing my Lisa voice. And then Lisa gives the line of the episode, besides "fuck you, Mary." She says, "Lisa Barlow is a fantastic person."
I know you talk about yourself in the third person. I'm like, okay, we're doing third person now.
So then then her and Meredith get into they both get into their who is the bigger victim thing. You know, that's pretty much been an ongoing theme with them, because Lisa says nobody's there for her. Meredith doesn't stand up for her. Meredith says, "You don't stand up for me." Then Mary says something, and her and Lisa were off to the races. Speaking of Lisa, what was up with that jacket? I love a good, and this was not good. I love a good 80s throwback with the big jacket and a little shoulder pad or whatever, but though that looked like she had on, it was just like a jacket that was just 8 sizes too big with football shoulder pads in it. I don't
It gave me
know.
very Max Headroom in his big jackets like
Yeah,
that back in the day. Yes.
exactly. Like it wasn't because it was like, what is this supposed to be? It wasn't the Rihanna suit jacket dress, but it wasn't. I don't know. I feel like. And I don't even know how she could have made it better, because if she wore it open, it would have just looked even wider. And it's not that it made her look wide, because she's got such a slender face, and she was wearing what appeared to be like a legging type pant. It was just ridiculously huge, and it did not convey whatever the style was she was
That
hoping
she
to convey.
intended. Yeah,
Yeah, it was just miscalculated. It was
I see
very
where she was going with it. It just missed the mark.
by a mile. Speaking of
Mm-hmm.
Mark, it was very much like something Meredith Marks would wear.
Where? Exactly.
Okay, so Lisa and Mary get into a whole conversation about who is fake, and this is another moment. Again, there was some moments, with Mary, as usual, a lot of hers are actually in her confessional, and this was a combination of it, where Mary said, "You are fake. You eat candy." And then she said, "You eat fast food, and you and your family eat Taco Bell." And then you hear the peanut gallery in the background going, "Well, I like Taco Bell. What's wrong with Taco Bell?" I was done. And then Mary and her language barrier from the rest of the world, where Mary goes into confessional. And I listened to it 4 times. Mary said, "Eating fast food shows you have no depth." And she literally enunciated to give a hard P on the P.
She forgot the TH, though.
You think?
She forgot the TH.
No, she didn't forget it. When you go that hard on that P, it's because you don't think the TH is supposed to be there.
I'm trying with Mary. I'm
No,
trying. But
because
no,
her
she
no.
she's another one that tries to use words that are not really in her normal everyday vocabulary. And I
There's
don't
a
have a problem.
depth
And
though, depth,
again, bridemaid. That's all I'm gonna say.
and that is the damn truth. You know what? Nothing. You know what? I'm gonna leave that alone. And then
Bridemaid.
I must say again, just because I like saying it, Lisa Barlow is a fantastic person. Okay. This was very cringy. This next statement, I wrote it down just because of the cringe factor, because again of what's going in real time. When Mary and Jennie started to say, "I don't like you, I don't like you," and then Jennie said, "I don't like the way you behave. I don't like the way you talk. I don't like the way you treat my friends." Without the current context, probably would be fine, but you saying you don't like how the way she behave and you don't like the way she behaves, especially given that Jennie has quite an accent for somebody who grew up in Long Beach. Like I'm assuming. Well, actually, you know what? I remember she did say that they were boat people
Yes.
because I have to keep reminding myself of that because I'm like her English ain't the greatest a lot of times in terms of um but Mary doesn't have that excuse. But that notwithstanding, you have a lot of nerve to have an issue with the way that someone speaks. Even now, we can have an issue with the way that Mary speaks. Jennie, you don't get to have an issue with the way Mary speaks because you don't speak the greatest either. Even in
Exactly.
that and even if I ignored it on the show, because obviously she's usually back and forth in a conversation with someone else, so you kind of, it gets lost in following the conversation, so you're not necessarily focusing on the person. But when you in her confessionals, and certainly in that horrible apology video that she did the other day with her special black friend that she shipped in for the occasion.
Oh my God. That was more offensive than if you had just said the apology. I love when they always show the one black friend. Well,
You
I
know
have a black
what?
friend.
She
I
might
have a
as well
black
have
friend.
just came on and said, "Look, black people, I don't F with y'all. I'm from Long Beach, out." And that would have been the end of it, because like you said, bringing the one black friend was even more offensive. It's just like, and then we're just not even going to go there. Bottom line is, some things don't age well. And this statement did not age well.
No.
It was one thing in April. It was even one thing when they did the editing, but it did not age well now. And that's why I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say about the reunion when we wrap this up, because we're almost at the end. Whitney and Mary get into a back and forth about the church and God and all of that. Again, I think that was rather producer scripted, because it was a very the conversation just wasn't well done. Whitney seemed to be very much struggling with it. They probably would have been better off just giving us whatever they cut out of the other arguments that were already taking place, because we know that the filming of this little dinner had probably already went on for umpteen hours. That's why it seems so choppy when with situations like Mary getting up and down, and Jen Shaw getting up and down or whatever, because they probably were cold from being out there filming the scene for so long. Again, for us, it doesn't seem long because all we saw was 30 minutes of it.
Oh no, they
Um,
were out there for hours. Hours.
Exactly. That's why, people kept going in and out, and that's why they wanted blankets. Um, this is where they got into the whole thing about the real friends issue. And Mary said, "We're not real friends except for except for her and Meredith, and she didn't even really say her and Meredith. She just said none of you are my real friends. And then she kind of referenced whatever her and Meredith have going on. As you and I have talked about before, Missy and I have certainly talked about even on this show. I don't think that Mary is friends, wants to be friends, cares one way or the other about any of these women, because in her mind they are all beneath her. I think it's more so that Meredith, out of all of them, would come closest to someone that she feels is on her level. Because in the grand scheme of things, while Mary doesn't have the most interesting storyline, or, well, I mean, not Mary, Meredith, and, well, there really isn't anything, at least I care about, that she has, that she's done that I care about one way or the other since she's been on this show. But she still is going to maintain her snowflake, because in looking at the cast as a whole, the formula calls for there to be a matriarch to the cast. And for this show, it is Meredith, whether it's by virtue of age or how she carries herself, whatever you want to call it. Meredith fits that role. While she will never be, because she doesn't have the personality, the money, all of that. While she will never be a Lisa Vanderpump or a Karen and Giselle or a Nene or anyone like that, she is as closest to the matriarch of this show that it gets. She's not the star. The star is unequivocally Jen Shaw, and the other women have certainly thrown their hats in the ring this season. But the star, and the person who is the, sort of the HBIC, are not always the same people on some of these shows. And
Oh,
on this
definitely.
particular show, Meredith may not be the star, although she's come up a little bit this season.
Season.
She is definitely the HBIC of the group. She's just not the big name that is associated with the show. Again, that's Jen, and of course Lisa has worked very hard this season to make that herself. Then, in another, what appears to almost like a damn jump shot, Lisa gets up and leaves. Because when Lisa leaves, it didn't even feel like there was anything about her at that point, because Mary was talking. And at that point, okay, so I'm trying to remember. Oh, I remember. And this is where it was so weird, because again, and this shows Lisa's need to make everything about her. So I'm glad we're at this point. So we're at the end, everybody. Um, because I went back, because I was like, what? So this is where it's clear what Lisa's angle is with making stuff about her, whether she even realizes she's doing it. Mary and Lisa, no, Mary, Jennie talked about the fact talked about, because they got back to the topic of Mary saying the whole thing, because that's kind of how we got here with the whole, I'm not really friends with you all and what have you. So they circled back after all the bickering back and forth to the point of, well, why don't you like Jennie and being friends with Jennie, which was just insane to me. um and that's, again, taking away producer points, because again, I don't know what this was with why this was so important, and she's not even a central character on the show. They kept
Exactly.
hammering this, why she said she doesn't like her, so why is it, well, if we're all going to be friends, well, who cares? Like, you came back into the season with most of the fans assuming none of y'all were speaking after the reunion. So it's certainly not Meredith and Jen, and that's kept up the entire season. So why is it okay for Meredith to not want to fuck with Jen? In fact, Meredith literally makes it a point to tell Jen to her face every time she sees her. Even when she's being nice to her, she tells her, she's like, you all are being mean to Jen. I mean, I don't mess with her, but y'all shouldn't be mean to her. So Meredith points out to Jen, to her face, and how she don't mess with her even when it's not relevant to the conversation. So
Exactly.
so why would this have to come up? So it was very weird. But anyway,
And the fact that they all kept on saying, well, you got to be nice. You're a Christian woman. You're a church leader. Why aren't you nice? Well, you could be, but you're not nice. And you're just not nice. And you're not nice.
yeah.
Okay, you know she's not nice. She's not nice.
So from what I understand and what I deduced is that, which is again, it's very convoluted, but it's what happened, is that Lisa got upset because when they dug deep into the issue of why Mary didn't want to talk about Robert, and then Meredith's explanation was a bit convoluted as well, but still, I mean, it wasn't a mean explanation. It was just convoluted. Meredith said that perhaps Mary didn't want to answer questions about Robert, which again, she didn't ask you anything about him except how he's doing. But anyway, that Mary didn't want to ask questions about Robert
Yes, that's
because
what started it.
she
Yes.
did, yeah, because she didn't see, because she is not friends with her and she was sharing stuff about her situation. She probably thought that she was only sharing that with me. So it was definitely a convoluted explanation because Jennie was absolutely not just sharing with Meredith. She was having a general conversation with both of them. Yes, it was referencing something that she had not previously shared with with Mary. I'm sorry. She was referencing something that she had not previously shared with Mary because Mary was not at Meredith's house when they had previously spoken about it. But she was definitely speaking to them both as her companions at the spa. She didn't say, well, Meredith, remember when we talked about well, girl, this is what happened. She was having a general conversation. Like, I want me and my husband to go to counseling and this and that and the third. Meredith responded to it. That was the end of the conversation. Then she asked about how Robert was doing. Again, you ain't got to like Jennie or whatever, but what happened is what happened. So at that point, Lisa walks out because, as far as she's concerned, again, all about me, as far as she's concerned, Mary giving that explanation was further evidence of her willingness to defend Mary and not, or have Mary's back, but not have her back. Even though Lisa was perfectly capable of and had held her own very well when her and Mary were arguing. And ultimately, it was Lisa who ended the argument when she said, I'm just not going to talk to you about this anymore, and went back to sipping her margarita. So there was nothing for Meredith to do. Girl, you handled your fight. You ended it and sipped your margarita. You didn't leave. I didn't have to have your back because you handled your issue like a grown woman. What was there for Meredith to say?
Exactly.
So, at any rate, she walks out, and this is where we get into it. And
The
remember, I
hot
said
mic.
this to the hot
Hot
mic
mic
moment.
moment. Yes.
And so let me pull it up because I got this earlier today, and it was so funny because everybody who was reporting on it was like, now we're hoping that this is not what was said. Oh, it was said. She said, and I'm gonna be good about this. I don't want my stuff taken away. She said Meredith can go F herself. And yes, folks, I mean the big one. And all of these words I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna say them, but she said the whole thing. There was no, she ain't say F. Meredith can go F herself. I'm done with her because I'm not a effing whore, and I don't cheat on my husband, her and her dumb effing family that poses. Why don't you own a house? Oh, wait, you can't because your husband changes jobs every 5 minutes. Meredith is a piece of effing S. I had your back and I'm offended by that. F you, that effing piece of S garbage whore. I effing hate her. She's a whore. She's effed half of New York and she can go F herself.
Yeah, that's what she
She's like
said.
the kid that just learned how to cuss.
And
Not
now
even,
she
and
think
she actually
every
doesn't even do it properly. So she didn't learn how to cuss. She just learned the words.
or that she was having a Tourette's moment. I don't know. Yeah.
But you
She
can tell that Lisa is a cusser. And remember, she had also, we don't know how many margaritas in she was.
That's true too.
Oh, but this came from her soul. You know,
Oh no,
I'm
this is
not
what
giving
she's
her
been
to blame
feeling.
it on the
Oh
alcohol.
no,
This
this is
is
what
what
she's
she
been.
felt.
Oh, I don't know if you want to
Because
hear her excuse.
she had the
Yes,
presence of mind to finally realize to take her mic off and come out and throw it. And also, she wasn't talking to a cast member. She was talking to whoever the production
production.
person was in
Hmm.
that room, or she was talking to herself. But either way, this was not, yeah, I don't want to hear no drunk excuse, boo. This was you, because that's what we're going to either get on Twitter. In fact, I'm sure the excuses are already up. So we're going to either get it on Twitter, or we're going to, let me see.
Oh, I can tell you now what the excuse was because I watched the first 10 minutes before we started. Watch What Happens Live, and
Okay, so what was the excuse for Lisa? Because it wasn't Lisa
Lisa.
that was on there. It was on, it was, what you call?
Yes, but they played it right into it. So you know now Andy's looking at Meredith like, how are you feeling about this? Well, did you all talk? And Meredith said, yes, we talked. And she said that at the time she was going off, that someone had told her that I made a comment about her home not being, basically saying her home was less than. So
Wait a
she
minute,
was
say that one more
mad.
time now.
She made a comment that she believed it was told to Lisa that Meredith had made a comment about Lisa's home being less than, or a derogative statement about Lisa's home. So she was pissed. And that's why she went off the way she went off. And
Okay, but
Meredith,
why
yes,
would you say such things? Like,
just because you talked about my home. Yeah,
I
that's the story she's
mean,
giving. Don't get me wrong, Meredith didn't sound like she was buying it too well, but you know how Meredith always takes the higher road, that she doesn't really sink into jabs back. That's one thing I'll give with Meredith, that she's not a big, she has to be pissed to really go back into, like when she's on stuff like Watch What Happens, she tries to maintain I'm a lady, and
and
I'm a
it's so
lady,
funny
and
because
I'm a
somebody
lady.
just said Lisa came on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City to destroy all of her 10 plus year relationships. And there's a picture of her and Jennie, her and Meredith, and her and Angie.
Yeah, she literally in one season has destroyed friendships she's had for like 10 plus years. Three of
Oh
them.
my gosh, that is too well, but I told you why. She was making sure. I'm trying. Okay, Lisa Barlow, here she is. Okay,
Hmm.
so let me see. Tweets. Of course, she's retweeted people who are talking about Taco Bell. I'm trying to see if she. No. Mm-mm.
She didn't dress it
Nope.
formally.
Nothing new. The last time she tweeted a personal tweet, it looks like was maybe a couple of days ago, like the 23rd. Otherwise, everything else has just been like retweets of other people's stuff. Like, for instance, she retweeted Taco Bell, where Taco Bell tweeted and said, "Baby gorgeous girls eat Taco Bell." And tweeted that. But other than that, she did not, she didn't tweet anything. So that is too funny. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, is Mary Cosby trending? Let me find out. Mary Cosby is trending. Unscripted reality, Mary Cosby is trending. And somebody, and of course, what's the first one that said? F you, Mary. And so it was fitting. Somebody said Mary Cosby said Jesus after Jennie Nguyen.
I'm not gonna lie that when all this came out about Jennie, I laughed because I was like, I know Mary's having a good laugh somewhere. I,
Yeah, and then it was too funny. But it's and then they said Mary Cosby would have stayed. She said she talking about Lisa needing nutrients. So anyway, so yes, the ladies are definitely trending tonight. But Lisa is laying low, and I think she should. There's really nothing she can say about it. I mean, even in light of the whole Jennie Nguyen thing, there just isn't much that she can say, because you're never going to convince a right thinking person that you knew someone for 10 years, and conveniently in the past several years, before anybody really even halfway knew you, that you just conveniently stopped looking at their Facebook page. And first of all, if you all have mutual friends, you mean to tell me that nobody who knows you all mention to you what Jennie was posting on her page? I get told what other dance moms who I don't even talk to, but we just happen to have kids at the same studio, say on their Facebook pages. I could not pick some of these women out of a lineup with a gun to my head, but let one of them say something about anti-vaxxing, masking, whatever, Black Lives Matter. It doesn't even matter what it is. Trust and believe. I find out. It's same thing whether it's school or what have you. And we're not even talking about people who are in my friend group who would be considered one of my so-called friends. These are just random other parents who just happen to have a child in the same activities as my child, and I don't even have to look at what they put on their social media. If it's something that gets someone talking, and certainly if it were something like this, everybody knows about it. So none of the other parents, when you guys have kids, y'all are not just friends outside of the housewives. As you said, the whole reason you met is because you have kids that go to school together. And none of the other mothers mention that uh um Jennie's Facebook page is like two steps barely below QAnon.
exactly.
Nobody mentioned that. Not possible. Not
Oh,
possible.
they knew it.
I don't care how white Salt Lake City is, and we know it is. Just like we know that Jennie, as she says, she's a proud Republican, just like we know she is not the only proud Republican in this group, because you're in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Exactly.
So let's not pretend we don't know what we're dealing with. Now, I'm not saying
And
that
be all shocked and amazed and I'm
yeah.
so
Now, I'm not
disgusted and
saying that
I'm
any of these other
unfollow her.
women feel the way that she does about this stuff, because we know for sure Heather don't. Because if she could get her something long, hot, and chocolate tomorrow, she'd be on the first thing smoking. Now, in her Mormon days, maybe. But we certainly know that that ain't the horse she's trying to ride right about now. Excuse me. But the rest of them, girl, bye. And
And Jen Shah, we know she's not.
well, yeah, but but that being said, let's not act like at least the politics side of it, that y'all are not on the same page. Again, not accusing anybody of going to the to the Jennie Nguyen extreme of it, but at least politically, let's not act like she was the only one that pulled the lever for Donald. Okay. So in fact, it's more believable coming from the rest of you, considering her situation, but clearly she's in the sunken place.
Well, I have no problem with, I mean, I say this and I say I have no problem, but people are allowed to be Republican, and I'm not upset with that.
I had
Vote
this
your
conversation earlier.
vote
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 your
your
conscience.
conscience. Exactly. So I don't have a problem with you being a Republican. I have
No,
no
being a
problem that,
Republican and being a Donald is completely things because he ain't even a Republican. He just crazy. But
well, he made it okay to he made it okay to say what they've been feeling for some years, and he made it okay to
exactly.
say it out loud. That's the difference with Donald. But my thing is, when
This ain't
this
about her being a Republican.
Republican, it's about her, the comments she made in regards to Black Lives Matter and her thoughts and theories of it, especially the one post that I read before, obviously, because they did the screenshots before she could take them down. Thank you. Where it says,
Hmm.
if Black people just listened to the police officers, they wouldn't get shot. If only it was that simple,
Girl,
sweetheart. If
when
only it was
she
that simple.
said that, I said,
Ooh,
see what
heifer.
had that's one of those moments when you just walking
Ooh.
down the street and you don't catch yourself before you punch somebody in the face, and then you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even know that. Oh,
My mistake. I'm
my bad.
no, that was when I read that one. That was one of the records, like, because you see the ones where just stay home and this and that. No, that was the record scratch. Like, wow, really? Like, you've seen the videos that we've seen. They do comply and they do listen, and they still get shot. So you what
Yeah, I
really,
mean,
really
and obviously you and I of all people don't even have to go down this
the list of what
go
has
down
happened.
this road. We already know
No,
what the deal is here, but so it's just it's the whole thing is interesting, but now really quick my thoughts as it relates to the reunion and the handling of this whole thing. My suggestion to Bravo, if anybody is listening, you may not be, but just in case you are, you never know who's listening. My suggestion to Bravo is if that reunion has already been cut uh, prior to the episodes where you'd had already sent them through editing and approval and all of that prior to this stuff coming out on Jennie Nguyen. And by the way, not letting you all off the hook, Bravo, because I do not believe in a million years that you went through a vetting process and nobody
caught that
saw
on her
that
social
caught this
media.
on her social media.
Exactly.
That I will not ever be convinced of that, no matter who says it to me. I just won't. Even if Mary goes to get her friend Jesus and he comes and tells me, I'm just not going to believe it. Not going to do it. Because, Mary told us, on the thing that she sticks Jesus on people. That's, remember her tagline, you mess with her, she'll get Jesus on you. So, we know Mary is a direct line to God, and she told us that. But at any rate, you're not going to convince me. It's too easy. There's too much information available. It's just not possible. And I'm just not going to be convinced. I think what they hoped was that they could get away with this being considered more on the political side of viewed as a political thing, as opposed to just out and out racism, and that they could just follow it through by having the women address it as a part of the storyline going into season 3, so that the entirety of the season would not be riding on Jen Shah's back, because the reality of it is that the trial is not set for until March, April, and there's only but so much of her preparing that you will be able to show, because hopefully she has a lawyer with sense that will, although clearly they're not able to make her stop filming, because that would have been step 1, but at the very least not allow any filming of her actual preparation with her lawyer. So really all you're going to be getting is just kind of whatever is going on between her and Sharif, because certainly these kids are not going to want to be on camera given everything that's going on, and given their ages, they are old enough to say so. I mean, well, the one son doesn't even live there because I think he's in like medical school or something, and the other one is damn near as old as him. So he certainly, especially after the trauma he already went through, with there being video that the entire world has seen of him being brought out of his house at gunpoint, he's certainly not going to want to be a part of any filming. So it's not the whole thing of filming these next few months leading up to her trial. It's not going to be quite as juicy until you actually get to the point of her going in and out of the courtroom every day. um
Exactly.
and even that again is iffy because at that point you definitely can't be saying anything. So and it, I'm sure they're still not going to show these episodes until next fall, so even though they've already started filming, blah blah blah. But anyway, I digress. The point is, I think that they were hoping for something else besides that, in that it would possibly be Jennie, because they had literally already started filming. That's why you notice that the statement from Bravo did not say she will not she will not be a part of season 3, but it said we have ceased filming with her, because they had already started filming last week,
Mm-hmm.
or the end of the week before. So she was definitely coming back. But anyway, back to my thoughts on the reunion. Because again, you and I will never believe Bravo didn't know. I think that the smart money would be on going back and recutting it. We know that, again, they do the reunions 10, 12 hours. Sometimes it gets so bad they have to do 2 days. So there's certainly more than enough footage. Any footage that has Jennie addressing the racial issues with with Mary. Not that those aren't legit, because I do believe two things can be true at the same time. That both Jennie is prejudiced and Mary is prejudiced. And so I don't believe that just because Jennie is prejudiced, that in some way invalidates, because I've heard a lot of that on a lot of shows, and people need to stop it, because you undermine your cause by excusing the behavior of somebody in your group, because I've seen this from a lot of Black vloggers. You are undermining the cause of equality by excusing a Black person being ignorant just because the other person is prejudiced as well. Two things can be true and neither one of them are okay. These are both women of color, and neither one of them should be acting the way that they're acting towards the other. Mary shouldn't be speaking in, trying to mock Jen's the way of speaking, no more than no more than Jennie should be acting in a manner that seems to be more aggressive towards Mary than some of her other castmates as
Exactly.
well, and it is especially in light of what has come out, because it undermines the cause to make it okay for anybody to be ignorant. Mary, at her big age, and especially in 2022, does not get a pass on talking about somebody's slanted eyes, especially when the person tells them that they have a problem with it. And then you still double down on it and be like, well, I just meant that. It doesn't matter what you meant. If I tell you it's offensive, and you don't get to argue with me about it.
You apologize and we leave it and move on.
And if you don't want to apologize, then don't. But you still don't get to argue with me about it. Then it just is what it is. You know what? I said it, and whatever. The same thing with the Mexican cartel thing. You don't get to explain that away. It is what it is. Just like Italian people don't want the automatic association of them with the mafia, you don't get to say that, say stuff about somebody, um, with the Mexican and then the cartel and this and that. You don't get to do that. And it doesn't matter what you meant, you just don't get to say it. You don't get to say Nigger and then say, well, no, I meant the God, not the You don't get to say it to me either way.
Pretty much.
And I don't care where you grew up and whatever, because again, at your big age and with everything that's available and who you portray yourself to be, you don't get to do that. And then like and I do hold, but I don't often hold people to a higher standard. I think you're either ignorant or you're not. But when it comes to, this is the one small point, not entirely, I do think that there are some people who put themselves in a situation where you have no choice in the fact that you are held to a higher standard. And if you say that you are a woman of God and you're preaching to people and what have you, then when it comes to love thy neighbor, I am going to hold you to a higher standard. Why? Because if you're not preaching that to me, that's what you're supposed to be preaching based on the fact that you're a preacher.
Exactly. You're the
Now,
leader. You're the
the
shepherd of the
rash
flock.
exactly. Now the reason that Whitney gave for that, in terms of, because of the whole, her being friends with Jennie. No, you don't have to be friends with anybody that you don't want to be friends with. Absolutely not. But this idea that you hold yourself out to be this and that and a third, but the minute someone points out that you should be held to a higher standard, the first thing you do is complain that, why am I being held to a higher standard? No, that's not something we did to you. That's something you did to yourself by virtue of how you, number one, the vocation that you have led everybody to believe you were called to, and the way that you act when you're around, to act like, in acting like your vocation makes you better than everybody else.
Yep.
Now again, like I said, there's six of one, half dozen of the other in this, because while like I said, should be held to a higher standard because that is the standard she put herself on the flip side of that, like I said, the rationale, the reason they were having that conversation is not legitimate, because held to a higher standard in terms of your behavior, yes. But having to be friends with people you don't like, no. It's just the way that you handle that is
Well,
what the higher standard is.
you don't have to be friends with. You treat them as a coworker, and that's
Yes.
where Mary doesn't. This is a job,
Yes.
and you treat them as a coworker. We don't like every coworker we work with, so you're
Exactly.
cordial to some, you're friendlier to others. But as long as you're
Exactly.
cordial, all we
As long
require
as
is
you're cordial, you're not rude, you're
rude,
not saying
cordial and
crazy.
polite.
You're
Yep.
cordial and polite. And yes, we are going to look at you differently when it comes to being polite because of who you hold yourself out to be. Now, that being said, you can't act crazy on me. So, got it. Again, that's why I said we're being fair here with both sides, because on the flip side, if I feel like you acting crazy on me, I'm not going to be nice to you. Now, again, because of my position, I may not cuss you and all that other kind of stuff that I would be before I took my oath of, I don't know, Jesus, whatever she did. Because again, remember, even her own family said, ain't nobody make Mary a preacher. Remember, even her own mother said her mother
Hmm.
was defending her to the death until they said, well, what about her being preacher? And they're like, oh no, Mary ain't supposed to be doing that. So, because one thing I will say, I got to give her mother credit. Your daughter has not spoken to you. She married your step granddaddy. No, at that point, your stepdad. She married your stepfather, who you all literally accused of killing your mother, who also y'all have literally been in an estate fight for 21, 22 years, to the point where there really isn't anything left. It's just a fight at this point. And in the midst of that, has not spoken to you. So I'm assuming there is probably no relationship with the grandchild.
None
And
whatsoever.
and God bless her, they defended her to the death. Literally, the only thing that they contradicted Mary on, or showed any type of contradiction, was that they didn't think that she was capable of preaching. But other than that, you would have thought that they had no beef whatsoever the way that they defended her. I almost feel like, as upset with them as she probably is for doing the interview, on the flip side, it needs to be a door opener for them putting their relationship together, because what I saw from the mother and father, it was crazy, but they loved the hell out of Mary. At least
Oh, they
that's the
do.
way I took it.
Oh, they put everything on Robert. It's not him, her. It's
Yeah.
him.
If you ask them, as far as they're concerned, Robert has a 46-year-old hostage.
Yep.
you know, they literally feel like if there is any brainwashing and whatever going on, it is Robert on Mary, and they need to call the people that be helping people escape from Scientology and Mormonism, and go and get Mary from Robert. But
Exactly.
okay, so anyway, I would cut everything. So back to the reunion, folks. I would cut everything out that relates to that, not because it isn't wrong, but because it didn't age well, even though it's only been 3 weeks. It didn't age well, because you cannot have a woman who has been shown to be what she is, and you all fired her accordingly. You cannot have her on there going ham about somebody's prejudice against her, whether legitimate or not. And I think we all agree what Mary said was wrong. You cannot have her on there going ham on that, given what we know and the fact that you all fired her, and on top of it, Mary not be there. If Mary was there, then fine. Because even though we know everything we know after the fact, we also know that Mary can hold her own. Even if all Mary does is what she usually does and go, girl, I ain't talking to you. I don't care. I apologize, I don't apologize, whatever. And, the conversation goes nowhere. Even if that's all Mary does, she still needs to be there. It does not age well to have that conversation without her there, because right or wrong, because of what we know now about Jennie, it's going to make Mary's behavior be viewed from an even more sympathetic lens than it probably should be, because it's going to just look like a bunch of white women led by an Asian woman who's been white adjacent for far too long, apparently, um, piling up on this black woman who is claiming that the whole reason she didn't come was because this was going to be done to her. None of it ages well. And so, not just for the fact that it looks bad with Jennie, but honestly, it's going to actually have I think it's going to have a pebble in a puddle effect, and permeate out, and it's going to make all of them look bad, because you're going to have them all rallying around someone who has been branded a racist, talking about this black woman who isn't there.
Yep.
So it's just it's going to be very interesting to see, excuse me, how this reunion is, what we see versus what we don't. And really, what we don't, it doesn't matter. It's going to just be very interesting to see what we see and what, if any, how, if any way, Bravo addresses it or don't. The smart money for the women on the show, and I think it would actually be kind of cool, is if they play the reunion. Still, they still need to recut it, but then do a sit down with the women, even if it's like 30 minutes on Watch What Happens, as a companion piece to the reunion in real time now with the remaining cast members. I mean, we know that right now, at least from our understanding, Mary is supposedly not on the show, and Andy confirmed that she wasn't coming back. But he certainly confirmed that she was not coming to the reunion. But but it sounded like when he confirmed her not coming to the reunion, that he confirmed she wasn't going to be coming back. But of course, Mary has allegedly said that that is not the case. Again, it's Mary, so whatever. We know what Andy said, and he the one at Bravo. um I think that it'll be interesting, though, because you and I know from a historical perspective, if that if you don't do the reunion and whatever, and she did have an excuse and the whole 9 yards, she didn't come because she didn't want to come, that you lose your job. You don't come back. You don't get to do that. However, this whole Jennie thing may have been a gift, because Bravo might feel uncomfortable taking that hard line with Mary, given that one of the women that she had a conflict with has now been branded a racist. So that makes it makes Mary more sympathetic to the fans. So if, especially their black fans, so if Mary wants to come back, the whole Jennie thing may have actually done her a favor. I mean, I still think the reunion needs to be recut, but Jennie actually, bizarre twist of fate, she actually may be the key to Mary getting a reunion reprieve, and being able to come back to the show. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think whereas last week before all this came out, she wasn't coming back
Oh yeah, she was
because
out.
she missed the reunion. They were done with her. Now
Yes.
because not, but also, I mean, by next season, well, they're starting to film now. So you said Jen Shah's trial's not until March, April.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so they might actually be able to film a whole season, or at least most of a season before her trial even starts. So,
But remember, they
okay,
can film as long as they want to film. I mean, they could take a
yeah,
break from filming and just be like, nobody has anything going on right now. We'll just pick up in April and whatever. And
yeah,
and remember, these women, especially when it comes to Mary in particular, are not friends. So all they have to do is sign her and give her a call sheet on the next place where they're gonna have lunch. It's
exactly.
not that hard. I mean, that's pretty much what they did when she was coming on the show in the first place.
Well, especially in this season, you could tell she did what she was required to do. She doesn't hang with not one of those
No,
women on her own accord. She
no.
does hangs with them because the show requires to. Like Candy, when before her and Phaedra fell out, they were actually friends. They became
Hmm.
friends. They hung out off time.
Her and
They did.
Kenya.
Her and Kenya are friends. Her and Cynthia
Hmm.
were friends. They became friends. Cynthia and Nene were friends before they fell out. So, like you said, where they did stuff on their free time, they chose to hang out. It wasn't all
Hmm.
for a camera. No, Mary does what she has to do for this camera. And it's very obvious this season more so than last season. But it
Well, because
kind of,
she's around more this season, so you can see the disdain oozing from her skin. Because remember,
because
last season, and then also, she went on trips with them, and it's just hard to play off not wanting to be somewhere when you're stuck there for 2 or 3 days at a time.
and your face is just looking like, oh, please
Yeah.
take me home.
Well, and
Please
you're
take.
only going to hold it together for so long. Mary is not, shall we say, conventionally normal.
No, not at
So
all.
she does not play well with others when it comes to trying to pretend that she can, you know, again, she doesn't play well in the sandbox with others. So, and people who are like that do not generally have good poker faces, or patience or anything like that when it comes to being in situations they don't want to be in, and is most especially being in close quarters for extended periods of time with people that they don't want to be around. And even more so, if in the case of Mary, is not even it's is more than just not wanting to be around them. She flat out doesn't like them. It may have
Exactly.
started out with not wanting to be around them and feeling like she was better than them and they're heathens and this and that and the third. But as she's in her mind, as she's gotten to know them, they have proven her right as far as every feeling that she had about them anyway, which is that as far as I'm concerned, I have spent enough time with you to realize that I really don't like you, and I really am better than you, and I really don't have any use for you. And so, given that she not only feels that way, but from a personality standpoint, doesn't seem to have the capability of navigating that without it showing, because it shows, then this is what you get.
Exactly.
And it can make for interesting television for us to watch sometimes because it's a little uncomfortable, but certainly cringy for her castmates. It's an interest. Again, Jennie, as far as I'm concerned, may have potentially saved Mary's job if she wants to go back. And not only, and the thing that's really extraordinary is not only could she is that not only is there the possibility that she may have given Mary a Hail Mary in terms of saving her job, but may have even given her negotiating power because she's Black and it just doesn't look good because her and Jennie had beef. If we found all this out about Jennie and Jennie and Mary never had any beef, then it would be one thing. But the fact that her and Jennie has had beef, and now, especially in light of even this extra stuff tonight, I don't like you. I don't like the way you behave. I don't like the way you speak, and whatever. Now, in context, she may have really just been saying, though I don't like you as a person, having nothing to do with you being Black. But
Oh yeah.
because of us knowing who and what she is in the broader context, you don't get that benefit of the doubt anymore. I don't like you. I don't like the way you speak. I don't like the way you behave is going to all have at the end of that sentence, because you're Black and I'm a racist, added on to it. Whether and it just is what it is, because that is who she is now to the world. And
Exactly.
and on top of it, you are a Bravo employee, and Bravo has put this woman in this situation, i.e. Mary, and you don't get the benefit as far as I'm concerned. And certainly if I were defending her, and I'm not even a fan of this woman, but as far as I'm concerned, if I'm defending Mary, you do not get the benefit with all your resources in this day and age of saying that you did not know that these things existed on this woman's Facebook page, which, contrary to what she said, was not taken down until the person pulled this information off. Not to mention the fact that the posts were put up in 2020. It wasn't under a fake name. And in the fall of 2020, summer fall 2020, when she was putting up these posts, this would have been when she was going would have been going through the vetting process for you to decide to put her on the show, which you started filming in January 2021. There's absolutely no excuse for that. So again, Mary Cosby or anybody who's associated with her or anybody who loves her on the show or whatever, call your girl and tell her If she wants a check and a nice check, not only does she have a shot of getting it back, but a bigger check than they would have given her if she had just gone to the reunion, taken her lumps, argued about her little church and all that foolishness, and gotten her contract for season 3. Because there's no question that they were bringing her back. That was no question. She did her job as far as the show is concerned. So that's not even an issue. Plus, she has an ongoing storyline because of the whole church stuff. So she's good
Mm-hmm.
there, because the
Exactly.
season is about to end and they still really haven't even gotten back around to addressing that because of all this mess that just went down between Lisa and Meredith, and and all of that other stuff. And now that Jen is hanging with them again, and of course whenever Jen's around, that becomes a whole thing. So anyway, but I'm going to let you go because we went a lot longer than we initially planned. So it's definitely a good thing that we only talked about this episode, because there would have been no way that we would have been going back. But as far as I'm concerned, the last 2 episodes were all pretty much just leading up to
To
the
this,
climax of this. Yeah.
exactly. And I
I
think next
mean,
week will be exciting because we see the continuation of the
yeah, I
post
just
fallout.
wonder if well, I guess we'll find out if somehow Meredith found out, because that would be cool, but then that would be production kind of. Then I guess
No.
they.